Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet ache for a life that never happened, a goodbye that came too soon, or the version of you that you had to let go of a dream to just survive. Today's guest, Jeanette Tachynsky, knows the kind of grief. She also knows what it means to rise and what it takes to rise, not in spite of it, but because of it. In this episode, we're going to go into everything inside of you that feels broken, that feels grief, that feels this loss. Jeanette shares her story of losing both of her parents in 1 year and how her mother's final message to keep getting on the plane became her rally cry. You guys, it just gives me chills. It's such an amazing sign. And we go through these pillars of what she did to create the life where she's jumping on planes, going to retreats around the world, sold out retreats, and the beautiful human being that she is. Now, before we begin, we're going to jump into our somatic peace reset, because I know you guys are like doing your thing, you're multitasking, you haven't had a break in years, and so this is what we're going to do. So if you can, I want you to get to a place where you can just be present. Just be with yourself. And if you're sitting down, you can close your eyes. Now I want you to take a deep breath in, filling up your lungs and exhaling. I want you to hold space for that grief. Not just the kind that comes with death, but the quiet grief also. Take another deep breath, inhaling, exhaling. The grief of a life we imagined but never lived. The grief of a person who's gone. The grief of a version of ourselves we had to let go. So wherever you are, just sit with that for a moment. Again, take a nice deep breath, inhaling. And exhale. Now place one hand over your heart. And if you can, place another hand over your belly. Let yourself feel the weight of what has been lost without needing to fix it. No pressure to move it. No need to make sense of it. Just breathing in. Let that breath make space. Let your heart speak gently and whisper to yourself, I'm allowed to miss what was. I'm allowed to mourn what never can be. I'm allowed to move forward. Inhale slowly, exhale. You're not alone in your grief. You're not broken because of it. You're human and you are healing. I want you to rub your fingers together if you can. And come back to this space. Let me tell you about the beautiful Jeanette Tachynsky. She is a visionary and world-class leader, retreat coordinator known for creating spaces where individuals can embody their light. She sells out retreats. She helps her clients to sell out retreats. As the founder of Embrace Retreats, she is carrying grief while also living. Okay, can't wait to see you in the episode. Jeanette, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I'm so excited you're here.
So excited to be here. It's such an honor and such a pleasure to connect with you.
I love it. Well, before we dive into your human design chart, can you take us back to that week in August, the retreat in Costa Rica, your time there, and can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, I think that this was like, it's been coming through a lot now. And I think in my own healing journey that it's time to share to share this story, right? Like I think that now it just wants to come out and be shared in terms of like the remembering. And it goes to my mama, and that was probably the biggest like pivoting moment in my life. My mama was my biggest cheerleader, my best friend. And, I had my passion project. My very first retreat was happening in Costa Rica. I was super excited, getting on that plane, doing the things. And, I was so excited and also going to celebrate my 40th birthday. So I had the whole month aligned. And if you know me, I travel for months at a time, and obviously Costa Rica. So it just felt so good and so aligned. Right before we left, my mom sat down and we had a conversation, and it was a Friday, and I think I was leaving the Monday, and we found out that my mom had stage 4 cancer. And I'm like, as I breathe through that, but it was just like in that moment, I looked at her and she was like, you have to promise me that you're going to get on the plane. And, to leave her and be going for this time to like, something that we've, and I say we, because my mom always supported me of getting to this place. This was my biggest passion project. Like I was doing the thing and turning 40 and celebrating, all of my life up until this point, and excited about what it could be, right? Into your 40s. What was this going to look like? And all of a sudden I find out that my biggest cheerleader, my mama, that when I come home from this, we're going to have the biggest fight of our life. Right. And that's what it was. It was a year almost to the date. A very tough year that we maneuvered through all those things and the many ups and downs. And, the story that sticks to me too within the date the most, and, if I may share, is that the morning, and I still remember this, it was August 6th, and my mom and I were very connected, very spiritual. So she would always send me these little like quotes that she would come through for her. And I remember walking to the shala that morning, and I was teaching the opening meditation and like dropping into that. And I seen this blue butterfly. So if you know Costa Rica, they're like the size of your hands, right? Like those beautiful butterflies. And she'd sent me a message on August 6th, 2022. And it said, this is your time. This is your time, butterfly. Like, this is it. There was more to the message, but it was just like, this is it. Like you've come to this space and this transition and this place, and you're supported, and you're stepping into your power and being as you be, right? And this beautiful message. And it was so interesting because obviously the universe always, we don't know why sometimes we go looking for an old message or we go looking for things. And it was a year later, my mama passed away on August 6th. And I went back and I looked, and that message was sent literally a year before. So then going back and looking at that and being in that space, and I'm like, my heart, and just to that remembering of that moment. And, the year, it's been tough right after that part of it, you think that was pretty intense, but 5 months later, my dad passed away, right? So I had, both parents, and moving through this and trying to figure out, what does this look like? Even in my face, you still need your parents. And I was like, why? Why is this happening to me? And, I'm just blessed in terms of like all the retreats I was going on and the women I was meeting and the connections and the support. At that time, I didn't know how prominent they would play these roles in my life to support me, to love me, to be here through this. And what I was gifted, and I sit here today because I can feel my mama. I know she's here. What I was gifted was this sense of freedom. This sense of freedom to fly like the butterfly and to see, what can my business look like? What does this look like through all the pain? I found a power. And by going home for my dad's funeral, I went to my hometown and I got to take back my power in different ways of things that, we look at these, and obviously you would never want to have to experience this. But in that processing, losing them, not only did I was able to let go of the past, and then also take this power back, and all knowing that now they were always with me, right? And it's like, and I say it all the time too, is that within my business of supporting retreat leaders, is that, my mom used to pack my suitcase with me, always before every trip. And I don't know how this woman could do it, but she would fold that. I was like, Mama, I don't know who's putting these clothes back in for me to get home, but it was just like our thing. It was like packing the suitcase. And what I realize now is that the women I get to support is like, I get to help them and their attendees, their community, their guests. We pack that suitcase together, right? To get them to their next level and their next space and their next place.
Yes. How, like losing your parents so close together. I mean, just losing one, like I lost my mom when I was 34 and I felt the same way. I was like, I don't care how old I am. I need my parents, And it is so hard. And I find that my community goes through so much loss. They go through so much loss of a life they didn't have, or a relationship, a divorce, or losing a parent or a child. How did you manage to not only hold those feelings, but also scale your business at the same time? Because it feels like sometimes it can be all consuming. That grief can just be a punch in the gut and it's hard to get out of bed. Do you know?
And I do know because there were days that I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here today and tell you that there weren't days that I didn't get out of bed, right? Like I really didn't. And there were times that, what I did is, and I think a lot of us do this in grief, right? Is that I continued to get on planes, right? So I had already, signed up for it was Aaron's retreat actually in Switzerland. So that was my trip. So my mom and I had been like, we always planned that her 60th birthday was going to be in Paris, and we love to manifest, and we play this game that's like in my perfect world, and we would just like, there's no limits on what we would do, right? And I'd already planned. So my mom knew that I was going to Switzerland. This was my first European trip, like over on this side, and I was like, wow, this is happening. And after she had passed, the retreat was a couple of months after. So I was in a very, I got on the plane, but in doing that, and then I went to Paris and celebrated her 60th birthday. So what I did from there was just like, I showed up, and looking back, maybe I wasn't as present as maybe I should have been, but something told me to do this, to get on that plane, to go there, and it just like continued from there. And I traveled around, and it was just like the hope. My business and the women and the retreats was giving me this hope, right? And I almost want to say like not disassociate, but because I was traveling, and traveling to me is home, right? Like it's, people are like, oh, you're in Ottawa. And I said, yeah, I changed my suitcase here. Like, let's be honest. If you know me, I'm most of the time in Costa Rica. And that's the life I built, over years without even knowing what I was doing. I would just kind of stop in. So for me to get on a plane, that's home. Like that was healing. That was support. And that's what I did. And, I continued doing that, to my friend's wedding in Tulum, to then, these beautiful women that invited me to their retreats, in different spaces and places from Costa Rica, Puerto Rico. Like I probably went to more countries in 6 months than most people travel in their lifetime. And it wasn't until I was living in a denial. Like I was being the version of me that was showing up. She was this businesswoman who wanted to learn, and she was showing up, but I don't think I was really as present as I could have been, right? Still doing the things. And I had a beautiful marketing manager at the time. So I was showing up online, but it wasn't me. She was taking care of everything. She was posting, she was doing all the things. So my business was building in the background while I was navigating the grief without realizing it, until I got to a space as I travel most of my life, and also with my conference job across Canada to Costa Rica, now all of these different places. And I don't think I have ever in my life, I've never missed a flight. I've never forgotten anything. And what happened at the end of all of this, after it was almost 8 months of traveling, is that I missed a flight. So I missed a flight on my way to Jamaica. And, and then in the US, I had to travel through Miami, do all these things. I was in Costa Rica. And that day I left my hairbrush, which seems kind of silly, but like I don't forget things. So what this was showing me was, wow, like you need to slow down. You can't keep, like, you have to deal with the grief and the things. And although my business was still going, and I was still connecting with all these women, and that really was the healing for me, because I don't have family, right? So in terms of like my close family, my soul family is very deep connected. And I have all these, I'm just blessed that I have all these connections worldwide, but that's what I was seeking in my healing, was that. So I kept retreating, right? And I kept going to these spaces and all these places until the universe was just like, you have to go home. Like you need to be home. You need to sit with this. You need to deal with this. And there's, I won't get into my whole life story, but an array of things as an adult when you're going through things and you're not showing up as your best self, right? Like our responsibilities and our bills and all of these things, that I basically blindsided myself for the next 6 months, to the point that I couldn't leave the country because I had so many things that the piles were too big. I couldn't see through them. I had to deal with them. I had to sit with that. I had to honor my parents. I had to feel all of the things. And it was probably one of the hardest times of my life, I want to say, in terms of like wanting to reach out to them and not having them there. And then exciting things kept happening, like these little, on this path that I created. Now it's this ecosystem of being invited to speak at retreats, being invited to do this. And I had all these little things coming through. And, then I submitted to and just surrendered to therapies and all these different things. And I had a beautiful grief coach throughout it that explained, just how grief works and how it shows up. And, through this time of just being in that and really surrendering, I stayed home for the 6 months I was in Canada, the longest time I've ever in my life been here. And, I make jokes. I'm like, I can, message anyone to meet me anywhere in the world and
Yes.
have, coffee in Paris and do all these things, as my gift as a connector. But I had no one to have coffee with on a Tuesday in Ottawa, right? Like it was just like, I created this beautiful life, but when I really needed that support, I had to sit with myself and I had to be here and I had to do those things and really like, wow, and when I came out of it, as you continually, it's like grief is always here. She's always here. But what I learned is that she walks with me.
Mm,
We walk together, and every holiday, it doesn't get any easier. It really,
no.
truly doesn't, but now I'm learning to do special things for me, like celebrate not celebrating holidays, and spending the Christmas in Costa Rica on the beach, to just these things that I'm able to remember, but I don't have to feel the holidays from this place of sadness. I get to create these new holidays that are like of abundance, of what life gets to be, and celebrating that, but also realizing that the gift to my parents now is that I'm living, right? Is to do the things and to get from here to there. But for anyone else that's going through this, it's okay. It's okay to be home, to
Yes.
be confused, to be upset, to feel alone. Like you go through all of these
Mm.
things and to cry. And, I don't even think a day that goes by without these emotions coming through. But now I smile. It's a remembrance, right? And I feel the
Yes.
energy and I'm like, when something amazing happens, I'm like, thank you, because I know they're both here. And, I mentioned too, with losing both of my parents, I obviously was closer with my mama. And I don't, I apologize to my dad, because I don't have the capacity I honor him and I feel that loss, but because I had so much love for my mama and what we went through, like we were so close. She was so young when she had me, at 18. So our connection is very different. We're the same person basically in the things that, maneuvering through, and that, I know that I will have, and there are little things, that glimpses of like, I know he's here too. And I know that he knows how close we were, and that, that we honor that grieving process in both spaces. But I really feel like, my next adventure, that I feel that love and I feel the support of both of them. And it's a very different feeling from that grieving and that loss and that like hollowness. Now I feel whole, but you feel that energy of it's okay. It's been a couple
Yeah.
years almost now, that it's okay to live.
Oh, yeah. I love that. It's okay to live. And I think one of the things when I lost my mom that I had gone through too is I was talking to my neighbor and she had lost her father like a year or so before. And she told me, she's like, you can either run from the feelings and numb and keep yourself busy, or you can choose to stop and work through the feelings. But at some point in your life, you're going to have to work through those feelings, whether it's now or later. And it's a lot easier to do it now. And I remember we were standing in our cul-de-sac, she telling me this, and I was like, oh, yeah, I've been running because those feelings hurt so deeply. They hurt so much. And all of the three things that you talked about is building support, slowing down, and don't run. Allow ourselves to feel those feelings and to navigate that. And it allows that healing to come, even though it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good. But we can have the support through that. And it just so reminds me of your human design and how, we each come to this world with a different lens and different gifts that we're born with. And that's what I love about human design, is it shows us these lenses and these abilities of how am I coming to the world? What is my butterfly look like, Because everybody's butterfly has different, and looks different. And what's our becoming looking like? And so on your human design chart, you have this theme of it's a not self theme. And this not self theme is your sign that you're not living your design, and it's frustration. And so frustration is not failure, it's just feedback. For you, it's a signal when things are misaligned. You're either pushing too hard, you're saying yes to things out of pressure, not out of peace. It's a powerful clue for pointing you towards what your energy actually wants. Because as a generator, which your human design type is, you're just busy. You can go, go, go. You can do all these things as this Energizer Bunny type of those feelings and those gifts of having so much energy. But when you put your energy towards things that are a no or that are frustrating you, that's your sign to change. And so can you remember a time where you felt this frustration that led you to something better?
Well, I definitely feel like it's in my business, right? When you're a new entrepreneur and you're like, I'm living my dreams and I'm doing the things, right? And we're learning. And I think the biggest thing is now I'm celebrating, but it's the clients that we pull in, right? And it's like learning, we think as a new business owner and we're doing these things that we need to help everyone, right? And you're saying yes to all these things. And there's always a learning curve. The lesson is always about us and what it is that we need to learn, not the other people. But I had a few times, and I think a lot of business owners could relate to this, is that, we're saying yes when the actual ideas and, their values, they don't align with us, right? And then the lessons that we learn, although I truly believe that every lesson we learn in life is less of a lesson than it could be had we not learned it or the timing of that. But there's definitely been over the years of different clients, and it's the dance that you're doing, right? As you're trying to figure out what aligns with you, what feels good. And I think in the human design, this is huge for me. It's huge because my whole body feels that. And the frustration is a real thing. Like I relate to this. I know this. It is. I was like, this is me. And you're still trying to you're like, no, I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing. And then you're like I try to find different ways around things to when it should have been a no. Right. So
Mm,
whether it's just like an idea, a business, but it's just like these things that come through and it's not listening. If I would have listened at the beginning, listened to my own self, felt my body, the frustration that's coming through isn't because it's not because of me needing to push through. There are some times in life when we do need to push through, that resistance is actually the lesson to overcome. But what I learned, in some harder lessons is that it is not that. It's a full body no for me. And it's, it took me years to maneuver through this because as a new business owner, you're like, well, I need business. I need these clients. I need to do
yes.
these things. Right. And you're not realizing how intense the alignment is. And myself as an energy, and when you surrender to this, it's like, oh, I actually know the answer before I know the answer. Right. And it's sitting with that and now identifying, I've done it enough times, learned those lessons that I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to need a moment to really
Mm,
decide what is an alignment. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the opportunities that are coming to me. It's just, and it could just even be the timing, but it's looking at that frustration that I feel, and really honoring that because it's not meant for me to push forward, so the more we talk about this, I'm so
yes.
excited to hear more because I'm like, okay, I'm finally listening. I'm like, I get it, but that's probably the
Yes.
biggest thing for me as a business owner is to really listen to those times, right?
Yes, totally. To really listen to, check in with your body and know that your body has the wisdom. The yes feels like an excitement, a passion, a lifting up, and the no kind of feels like a blah, uninspired, or just like I don't know, I don't opposite of passion, It's and we can check in with that barometer and really trust yourself that your body has the wisdom, your body has the ability to go forward and to trust in that wisdom, even though it's well, logically, this would look like this. But honestly, there's really not a whole lot of there's some logic, of course, with life and business, of course. But when we're making decisions, it's a body thing. It's not up here, it's a body situation. And whenever we say yes and trust in our bodies, that's what makes the biggest difference. So, also on your chart is your profile. Now, you're a 2-4, and the mantra for this is I am naturally good at the things that I love. And so, you have this harmony and with solitude and connection, and your genius really comes in this natural rhythm of the things that you're creating. And it's almost like, how does she get so good at what she's doing? Because you're just good at it, you know? Like you're just good at the ability to do the things that you love and following that ability, that feeling again, it comes back to this feeling, following that feeling of the things that you love are meant for you. And oftentimes I tell my clients this all the time. I'm like, they're like, I don't know if I'm meant to do this. I don't know if I should. And I'm like, did you have the feeling inside of you? Did you have a full body feeling of, yes, this is what I want to do? Well, guess what? That's your qualifier already. You don't need a list of certifications, a list of other things. You know, all you need to do is trust yourself and trust that things will flow to you and put your efforts towards those things that you love. So, how now also with this, you have a little bit of introvert extrovert situation going on. And so,
Like, I
you
can
know,
feel that, I think.
with the two fours, you got a little bit of connection with people, but you need some time alone. How do you balance, especially I guess with going to retreats and you're going to be gone for 6 weeks on retreats back to back to Italy? Where are you going again? Tell us.
Italy, Croatia. I have a trip to Paris, France, and then maybe a surprise visit to Egypt, who knows, and possibly Norway, and then back to Italy.
Oh my gosh. So how do you balance your need for your own time, your alone time, with your love of connecting with other people?
Yeah, so, for me, I resonate with this so much, like it is me, and I am that, is that, in between a lot of my travels, I do have alone time. So as much as I'm on a retreat, and I even tell this to retreat leaders, like a lot of times we'll stay off site or we take a day before and a day after, right? So it's already built into that. And then just honoring myself throughout, right? Like you're going to be on, it's a lot of energy, but then I have in between each trip, I've got a day here, I've got a day there. And I do have, a big time in between the retreat process that I don't have a retreat, right? So I've got a week in between this time I'm doing some business things, but I'm on my own and I'm doing these things so I can breathe and I can be, but we're never alone. I tell you this, I plan. I'm like, I'm going here. I'm never alone. Someone will get on the plane. I have a girlfriend meeting me at every single retreat, every single space. They're getting on the planes, right? Like they get on the plane. So I'm never actually alone ever. But, I have learned to find this time for myself. And it's always before and after retreat. So if I was just going to one retreat, I always take time in between and basically everywhere I go. Like even I went to my friend's wedding in Tulum and there was a big group of people and it was amazing, but a lot of energies. And I went to go visit retreat centers and I found this beautiful space in this like national park and it was called Butterfly actually, which is yeah,
Of
that's
course.
was. And I just retreated, right? Because for me to be by myself and just like be in that space is so replenishing, right? To reconnect with myself, to kind of review everything that is going on. And I've been like that, I think, since I was a little kid. Like I was the little like I could entertain myself, outside playing or doing whatever. And it's like I know that I need that time to replenish. And even when I come back after travels, I take a good, there's at least a good 3 days that it's like it's just me and Chi Chi, my little dog, and we spend that time together because you can't just keep go, 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 go. It's,
Right.
especially with a retreat and holding that space, right? Like you need to take that moment to be able to show up for everyone and be able to be your best self. So it's definitely something that I think it's taken me years to get to that place where it's not like this burnout. It's like we schedule into my life is this time. It's just natural to have everything that we do. There's days mixed in for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's so important to have that schedule in order to support yourself. So like for me, like have days where I've blocked off that I do not meet with people. It's not a weekend because my family's all around, And so I have days where I'm like, I just can't meet with people. I just have to have some time, And that is like what allows me to feel more energy because we're really connecting to people and we're taking in their energy. And I don't want to feel like I'm blocking people's energy because it blocks their connection. And I want to feel present and I want to feel connected and I want to feel all the feelings. But there's times when each week that I'm like, this is my no connect day. I'm not, talking to people or doing things. And it really is uplifting. Now, also on your chart, when we're looking at that body graph part, we see all those centers. And when the center is colored in green, it means we have these gifts all the time. Versus when they're colored in white, it means these gifts come ebbs and flows. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But one of the centers that really stood out to me is your intuition center. And so this mantra is, I trust my intuition to lead me in the right direction. So you have this an inner guidance, this inner wisdom that's grounded in your pathway. I always feel like our pathway is so divine and harmonic and so led. And a lot of times we can either keep stepping on the pathway or we can just veer off ourselves, you know? But your intuition is guiding you to what's for you, what's aligned for you, what's time to let go of this thing, what destination to choose next. And so when we're even like in business decisions, that intuition can really help guide you through the process. So how do you because you're very intuitive, you're really good at listening, but how do you protect and prioritize that inner voice when the world feels so loud?
Like anyone, think that I'd gear off into the detour. Absolutely, right? Like you're like, oh, squirrel, like what is going on over here? But what I've learned, even in like the grieving process, is that when I sit and I listen to my, intuitively and I just sit with it. I didn't plan any of my trip. I had one retreat that we planned for a year, obviously, but whenever I surrender and I just listen, I'm guided, right? And you meet the right person to do this, like my whole entire trip unfolds and is parallel. And this is how I know that my new normal is to surrender. And people are like, oh, where would you travel to given a choice? And I said, I haven't actually asked myself this question in years. I was like, I don't know. I was like, that's a good question other than Costa Rica, right? And my new love for Europe, but I trust so much in the processing that I'm just guided. I'm guided. I didn't plan, the second retreat. I didn't plan Croatia. I didn't plan, like, it's just like, I just was open to receive. And that's how I know it's my alignment. It's when I'm in alignment and I just trust in that. But there are times, like when grief is too heavy or there's just when I don't work well is when I'm in chaos. So when I'm in chaos,
Mm,
that not necessarily saying like the good kind of chaos where we like life is amazing and we're doing all the things and it feels a little chaotic within our energies. I mean more so of like I can't make a decision. It feels
gotcha.
chaotic and I feel like in that moment, those are the times that I have to come back to myself. It's like going back to my yoga mat, right? And it's
Mm,
filling my own cup and putting myself first, which is a challenge for me all the time. Like my morning routines and eating well and doing all these things, right? And the more that we fill our cup, the more that then the chaos is it's easier to deal with everything that is happening. And then I find when I'm in alignment is when my intuition is like, here you go. There's all these things because you can see them, you feel them. You're not blocking yourself from receiving those things, right? And that energy. But it's still like, I'll probably be learning this lesson for the rest of my life, right? Of like, what feels good? Okay, I'm here, I'm doing this, and knowing that we need that recharge as well, right? It's like,
yes.
and just honoring those things. And it sounds like you have that ability too, where we know it's like, okay, I need this day off. And I do the same thing in my work schedule, where then it's open that you can schedule something if you wanted to, but it's not a priority in this moment, right? So it's just trusting. I think a lot of it is just trusting in exactly where you're supposed to be. And the challenges that come through are things you have to, they're there. They're your healing agents. They're your biggest teachers to be like, oh, why am I feeling this way? Why do things feel heavy? Or why do they, I'm indecisive. And I know when I get to that space now, that's when I need to sit. I need to sit in the
Mm.
uncomfortable and be like, what is the lesson? And then, it opens right back up. It's like when I stop resisting, the universe is like, oh, go here, do this, or I meet someone, right? It's just like someone comes through and you're like, oh, I see you. So this is the next step, right? But it then comes back to what we were saying is trusting, right? Trusting.
Just trusting that it's all going to be for our good and just to listen. And that's like, so we do with the podcast, we do a somatic reset for every introduction. And I do little somatic resets throughout the day because otherwise I get so chaotic and so busy. And I'm like, wait a second, what is my body saying? And our bodies have wisdom that is creative, that is innovative, that is empathetic to us. And if we are in this go, go, go mentality, we miss that. If we're in this restless mentality, if we're trying to work too much, we miss that. And those are the really deep alignments that allow those energies and manifestations to come to us without us having to do much work at all, you know? So it's amazing. Another part on your chart is your one of your gates that really stood out to me. And a gate is another layer of our gifts that we're born with. It's on the body graph. If we're looking at that, it's one of the lines that are colored in. And this mantra is soul is a story keeper and storyteller. So you have these transformative chapters in your life where you are a story keeper and then you're a storyteller. And you bring this ability of your experience and this shared wisdom throughout your life to heal others. And I feel like, so when I look at a human design chart, I just kind of pull things that I feel like I'm like, this is such a retreat like situation because in retreats we tell stories and we shift through stories and keeping those stories and your experiences. And when you were telling me about your experience with your mom and your dad and all the many layers that went into that, it's just this beautiful wisdom that you've transformed to help others. And your soul uses this gift to help others. So when you're on retreats, sharing these stories, telling these experiences, it allows others to say, I have this Me Too moment. I have this, I needed to hear this. I don't feel alone. I needed this in my life. And those stories can be messy, right? Like it can be like tears and we can still be in the middle of those stories, but we can still share. How have you how has the stories that either others have told you or your own helped you as you've worked with others?
I feel like even just in the things that I share with you, the
Yes.
great loss, which we all go through, and it's the support that we're missing, right? In dealing with grief and having to know that you're not alone, even though you're processing all of these things, that are never really alone. But, even in, this resonates a lot too, just in sometimes I have these why me moments of like, why is this my life, with the struggles and the things that I've lived through. And I sit here today because I feel now, I don't want to say the most healed, but I've definitely hit this new version of me, right? And in the past, like I live a life of sobriety. So I'm 10 years, this is my 10th year of sobriety.
Way to go!
And yeah, and so that's part of my story too, is that I laugh because I say, not only did I quit drinking, I quit drinking, but I also quit eating bread and all of these things at the same time. You gave up all of the things.
Yes.
That part of me, that part now I find is coming through a lot. And, I celebrate the anniversary because 10 years is a big deal. But for me, it's that there's nothing in life that I cannot, get through. Right. And sharing that story with others who, alcoholism and these different spaces and places, they're not living their highest good. And they sometimes can't see out of that. So when I share my story, and I had this woman actually, I was at a festival a couple of years ago as a vendor in my city. And so for embrace retreats, and we do this every year, except for this one because I'm going to be in Italy. But I had this woman who I talked with briefly, just sharing about my business. And I don't even know how it came up about sobriety, but I must have shared something. And this year, so a year later, she sent me this beautiful message. And she said, you had such an impact on my life. She said, if I could see you, she's like this beautiful human. She's like living her life. It gave me hope that I could do the same thing because you were doing it, right? With your business and your retreats and your beautiful energy, as she described these things to me. And I was like, wow. And we actually ended up having coffee a couple weeks ago and got to connect because I wouldn't be here for the festival this year. And it's like, we don't realize, like, how humbling is this, that we don't realize in our storytelling of how that impacts. And I probably only talked to her a few moments. We're at a vendor booth, so there's hundreds of people around, and that I had that connection with her to share, or even just her seeing me and seeing that spot, right, and like being like, wow, I have this connection, and it having that impact, and then also in my past too, learning and maneuvering through relationships, right, and then these things that we don't always talk about either, that the lessons we learned, and going through a not so great space, but then also
Yes.
standing here on top of all these things. This is why I say the why me.
Yes.
But I'm at this place now because I reached out to the support. I retreat. And I can't say just because I have a
Mm.
retreat business, but this has been impacting, retreats have been impacting my life for years. The women that you meet, it's like you dive so deep, so quickly, and these connections are real life connections, like lifelong connections. And that's really what can carry you through. But in sharing your story at different points, different stories come through that different people can resonate with. Saying this, I was like, wait a minute. I was like I was like, "Okay." I was like, "These are some pretty, intense things that I've lived
Yes.
through." And then it's like, "Oh, but my gift not only in my business is to support other women and bringing their visions to life, but I am that storyteller because I have lived this and now I'm living this today." And as I've told you, my next, my new normal is getting on a plane and retreating, right? And if I can get through all of these things, and it's sometimes we just need the hope and knowing that we're not alone, right? And I was just blessed that I had all of these women show up for me. So if I can show up for someone and share my story that is going to help you get where you need to go, right? Like all of our stories are different, our paths are all different, but we don't walk them alone. And I think more and more now, women, we say it's collaborations over competition, right? And
Mm.
I say women because I work mostly with women, but it's that's what it is now. Take my hand, let's have a coffee. What is going on in your world, right? And that's okay. It's okay to feel these things, to maneuver through these things. But I can't say, and I don't want to be like,
Yes.
I can promise you that it's gonna be okay, but I can promise you it's gonna be okay.
Yes, I love that. And it is those sharing those details and sharing those emotions in the journey that can really transform others and be the gift that you give to other people. So, what would you say to our audience who is going through this messy middle, right? They're still in the middle, they're still in all the grief, they're still in all the layers, whatever they're experiencing in their life and they feel alone. What would you tell them?
To call me. I was like, I'm always here to listen and to offer guidance and support. But when we're in it, that's the scary part is that you don't think, our minds tell us these stories that even when we're in pain, that we're doing it alone and that we have to do it alone, but my biggest piece of advice is that you do need to feel it because like we said before, like me, you're gonna miss a plane, right? And you're gonna these other little things because we're not at our capacity to even do the simplest little things. And it just takes time. It's like sitting with that, but it's also setting up supports, right? So it's okay. It can take months where you are just by yourself, right? But it's also knowing that there are places people to reach out to and friendships and as much as because we don't want to burden others, right? With it. And that's what
Right.
happens a lot too. And it doesn't have to be this burden. It can be, like I said, to take your hand, like, come, let's go, and just maneuvering through that because it's a new light, it's a new way of being. Grieving is, an intense process and it doesn't have to be the loss of a loved one, right? It can be a relationship, it can be a career, it can be this part of our ego, but it's like celebrating that part of you that got you from there to here. And then it's also doing the work, right? Like we need
Mm.
to do the work and to sit with ourselves and know those lessons, learn those things that are coming through for us, and really identifying what are our needs in these moments, right? Do we need
Mhm.
a phone call from a friend? Do we need to get on the plane? Do we need to retreat? And for me, it's retreating. Like community is the biggest thing that you can have in these times, and I get it. You're going to want to stay by yourself. Like you're going to want that alone time to navigate what you don't know. And that's okay, but just don't stay there. Allow yourself a time limit to come out, right? And I go back to my mama as we always played this game since I was little and it's in my perfect world. Oh, and then we turned it in. Obviously, it's a way of manifesting what I didn't know when I was young that that's what we were doing. And it's dream. Give yourself
Mhm.
that hope like I did in my business. Get on the plane, right? But just sit with this new version of you. What does she get to do? Where does she want to go, right? Because you can still be going through grief and finding this version of you, right? And that's what I do. It's that big dream thinking is what's going to pull you through, right? And then it becomes before you know it, it's a reality. You're getting on a plane tomorrow and you get to live a dream. that you didn't even know. I'm like, and that's what it is, right? It's like you have to sit and you have to allow your heart to feel and to love and to go through this process. But it's always coming back to the fact that you were never alone, right? And I was like, I'm literally usually a plane ride away. I was like, from
Yes.
anywhere, and offering that guidance, because sometimes we just need to hear it. We don't need advice. We just need you to hold space because we don't know how to do something. We don't know how to feel in this new place. It's new. It's new to go through grief. It's new to go through any type of loss. And just, with myself of navigating through that and being here today. Like I said this yesterday of just how grateful I am, of this new version of me. Like I just finished, working into being a travel agent here in Ontario. So I've got some, these exciting things coming through, but it's like cognitively, I came back to this space, right? And I was like, my heart is open. I'm receiving and ready to receive. And it's like, but it took time. It's been almost 2 years, right? Of that journey to get where I am today. Like when I get on that plane tomorrow, it is like this new version of me and she's ready to live.
Oh, I love that she's ready to live. And oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, this has been so amazing. Jeanette, I have loved this conversation. I know people want to jump into your world, jump into retreats. Tell us how they best connect with you.
Yeah. Well, I guess basically I'm mostly on Instagram, to be honest with you. So either a DM to Embrace Retreats or my personal page is the best space for that. Or even just hello. You want to send an email to hello@embraceretreats.ca. But yeah, finding me on Instagram is probably the quickest one to send a DM. They come right to me. And I am so happy to connect, even just to have a coffee.
I love that. And we'll have that in the show notes. Again, Jeanette, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been like so uplifting. I have pages of notes and just inspirational like moments. It's been amazing. So yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great. And everyone, Jeanette's journey reminds us that grief and purpose can coexist. That starting doesn't mean you're healed. You've healed it all. It just means you're listening to what's next. And thanks for being here. And we'll see you in the next episode. Wasn't that so amazing? Oh my goodness, I came away with pages of notes and intentions that I've been feeling. And what I want you to do now is one thing, okay? I want you to either sit with the feeling that you've had during this episode. I want you to look at your notes and I want you to focus in on that one thing that you can do going forward. As human beings, we get so inspired by inspiring podcasts and speakers, and then we forget to zone in on one thing. And so I want you to focus in on that one thing that you can do moving forward. I'm going to give you just a pause because I like a pause, and a pause is easier to do with people. So I want you to pause and think of that one thing. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to write that one thing down, because as human beings, we always forget. I always forget too. And so I want you to write that thing down, either put it in the notes on your phone, put it on a sticky that you'll see different places. I want you to have that so you can go back to and reflect over and over again, because these episodes aren't just for you to inspire you in the moment. They're to inspire your actions going forward in the next moments, and I'm here to back you up. And I'm so grateful you're here. One thing I would love for you to do, as we get these messages out more and more, the thing that can help this podcast, and it can help me out so much, is for you to go like and subscribe and share these episodes. It's so easy. It just takes a second, but it helps other people to find these episodes. It helps the podcast to get out there, and I so appreciate it. So